We begin with a major investigation into Australia's border security, and tonight extraordinary claims that triad gangs in Asia have been smuggling people into Australia. ACA has been told these highly organised syndicates have been bringing them in not in small boats but on big ships and right into our capital cities. Nick Etchells begins his report with one of the crime gangs, Mr Biggs.
How much does it cost to get smuggled into Australia?
Per person, $20,000 US.
$20,000 US.
This is an interview with Pure Evil.
Either way, we get our money. Even if the person dies halfway, we still get our money.
Tonight, you're going to hear allegations that, if true, will call into question everything we think we know about human trafficking into Australia. We're talking about one of the world's most feared crime syndicates, smuggling people not in leaky boats to the north of Australia, but rather in shipping containers into the very hearts of some of our biggest cities. This from a man who's risking his own life just talking to us.
Smuggling people, to you, they're just goods?
To me, it's all the same, just like goods.
Here, in a smoky Asian hotel room, we're sitting face to face with someone Australian authorities seem incapable of catching. One of the Asian Mr Biggs, whose triad crime syndicate traffics humans to Australia, apparently without a care in the world.
Do you see yourself as a bad man?
I consider myself a good guy among bad men.
Every month, it seems, more and more boats are landing on our shores with increasingly tragic consequences. Our land girt by sea is under siege from people smugglers, and our border protection net is leaking more than the boats they're trying to catch.
What I stand for is I stand for stopping the boats before they leave foreign shores.
My message to people smugglers and asylum seekers is very clear. Do not come by boat.
Sometimes, when you're investigating a story, what you discover is not what you set out to find. In this case, we'd been looking into the illegal chop-chop trade into Australia. British-American tobacco investigators offered to put us in touch with an Asian crime figure who from time to time provides them with information in exchange for money. He wasn't paid for our interview, but, much like our Australian gangland figures, seemed to very much enjoy the opportunity to gloat. He was asked in passing about people smuggling. What that question uncovered was as much a surprise to us as it surely is to Australia's political leaders. A detailed description of a people smuggling racket that so far has literally and figuratively sailed under the radar.
What would your boss do if he found out you were talking to us?
Definitely, I would die.
You would die.
He's introduced to us as Angel. Clearly that's not his real name, but you can understand his caution. You see, Angel is a senior member of the Malaysian Triads, a franchise of the feared Chinese organised crime clan that trades in people, drugs and tobacco, violence and misery.
We think in Australia of illegal immigrants coming by boat from Indonesia. Are you saying that they come in containers, on container ships?
That's right. They are coming from the container.
Has your boss ever got caught doing this?
No, he has not been caught before because all has been arranged.
For Angel's safety, we've had to meet at a location far from his criminal bosses. So our investigation begins here in Singapore, a place where he does a lot of business and a major gateway for shipping to Australia.
Singapore is the ultimate melting pot of East and West. It's got the world's busiest container port, a booming economy and some of the strictest laws anywhere. So it's an unlikely location to meet with a triad crime boss whose proudest achievement is murder.
The biggest I have done is to throw somebody into the water because that person betrayed the syndicate.
There's neither remorse nor excitement in his voice. It's all just business. And it's with this same professional detachment his organisation approaches the business of freighting human beings.
How long are these people in the containers?
They will be in the container until they reach the final destination. Normally, it will be 1 month.
The scheme is as elegant in its simplicity as it is ruthless.
Where do they sleep? Do they have beds, toilets, food?
They don't have any beds. They sleep inside a container, but there is food inside for them to eat.
Keeping that many people secret on board a ship would be impossible. But there's a reason organised crime gangs have been successful the world over.
The people who run the ship, they must know about it.
Yes, because the freighting company is also related to the Triad.
The company belongs to the Triad, so the captain does what he's told.
Yes.
Imagine for a moment what it might be like to spend weeks at sea in one of those containers. First of all, the heat here in the tropics is absolutely stifling. The only ventilation would be through a slightly cracked door. They'd be allowed out perhaps once or twice a day for 5 minutes to go to the toilet and have a short stroll. There's no question to do that you would have to be an exceptionally desperate person. But if there's one thing we've seen from the boats arriving on Australia's north, there's no shortage of desperate people.
This thermal image was taken by US Border Control. It shows Chinese and Latino illegal immigrants crammed into very similar conditions on the back of a truck. It's become a favourite technique of Mexican crime gangs and, according to Angel, the Triads too.
What about medical care? What if they get sick?
They have to take care of themselves.
You said your boss doesn't mind if people die. He's already got his money and there's a scapegoat. A lot of Australians would call that very ruthless.
The people who we traffic actually choose to go over.
They take their own risk.
Mexican authorities say they have intercepted
As governments crack down on people smuggling, it gets harder to do. And foreign governments have increasingly noticed organised crime taking over.
These migrants say they paid $7,000 each for a truck ride to the U.S. border.
These people, caught by infrared camera, were packed into trucking containers in appalling conditions.
The price they end up paying the gangs is far higher.
In England, an entire container load of asylum seekers was found dead. The doors of their container had been sealed airtight. Australia is so isolated, this method used to be rare, but certainly not unheard of.
The passengers were found hidden under a container in the bows of the ship.
This happened off New South Wales, one of the few times it's been reported here. 80 mostly Chinese illegal immigrants paid $20,000 a head to get to Australia. They were so well hidden, it took customs 3 hours to find them. But during this investigation, The Current Affair has discovered that Australian authorities are not above covering these incidents up.
Look, I'm aware that some years ago there were people that were found deceased in containers that came into Australia. And again, that was an example of where people came a long distance and the plan of putting the container on the ship failed because they couldn't open the door.
Richard Ionesco says that incident was kept hidden from the public, and he's a man who would know.
So how long did you work for Customs?
Almost 45 years by the time I finished. So
During those 45 years, he's been in charge of Australia's Coast Watch and was the National Manager of Investigations for Customs.
The one that I'm talking about came from Africa and it came into Western Australia.
And people were found dead?
That's right.
Why haven't we heard of this?
Well, I don't think everything is publicised.
People smuggling is perhaps the hottest political potato in Australia today. And front and centre in that debate is Customs and Border Protection. And they haven't been shy. I've counted somewhere in the vicinity of 40 press releases Customs has put out so far this year on their achievements. On these allegations, though, they've flatly refused to get involved.
There's 3 people on the bridge, no one appears to be armed.
The truth is, in the past, most attempts to smuggle people here in containers have been amateurish and doomed to failure. What Angel describes, and what Customs doesn't want to talk about, is a shift to large-scale, highly organised smuggling.
If you smuggled drugs and tobacco, wouldn't you naturally use the same networks to smuggle people?
I think that's true. I think people who smuggle one type of product have got the networks, the ability and the knowledge to smuggle anything.
Is it easy to smuggle tobacco into Australia?
It is very easy. I have been involved in the scene for a number of years.
According to Angel, it's their well-oiled tobacco and drug smuggling programs that provide the template for people smuggling. And lately, Australia has become big business.
Tobacco smuggling into Australia, is it getting bigger as an industry?
If the price of cigarettes now keep on going up, obviously the business is getting better.
Our high tobacco taxes have attracted organised crime like flies to honey. It means they can charge much more for their chop-chop. We saw evidence for ourselves earlier this year.
You just sold these 2 boxes of illegal chop-chop cigarettes to our producer here. Is this something you do a lot?
Tobacco companies claim 1 in every 6 cigarettes sold in Australia is illegal chop-chop. Customs denies this, but they don't actually have a task force that investigates tobacco smuggling. Most of the chop-chop profits go directly to organised crime. Just to be clear, we're talking here about illegal chop-chop profits directly funding people smugglers and drug traffickers.
Put it down and I'll get out. I'm not putting it down to you. I want you to not throw that at me when I'm walking out. Don't put it down and I'll walk out. That's what you want. Put it down and I'll walk out. That is how seriously they'll defend their right to sell these cigarettes. With the money that triads make from tobacco, does any of the tobacco money go towards people smuggling or illegal drugs?
Yes, definitely.
To verify Angel's claims about the ease of tobacco smuggling, and by extension people smuggling, our investigation headed north to Hong Kong. Its harbour looks like a scene from D-Day. As a gateway to China, Hong Kong is also a hub for the illegal chop-chop trade, which is why we're here. Posing as an Australian criminal, I've got a meeting arranged with an illegal tobacco trader named Howard.
So far, all contact has been via email. We're about to have our first face-to-face meeting. Clearly, we can't let on who we really are, so I'll be filming this using a hidden camera inside this keychain and another one just inside the watch. With any luck, within the next hour, we should have a deal. Yeah. How are you? Good to meet you. Yeah. Go sit down.
As far as he's concerned, this is a standard business meeting.
If you want to sell in Australia, you have to put the Howard label. But we don't have this before. You are a new customer to us.
Yeah.
That's why the minimum order quantity must be 2 containers first.
Must be 2 containers.
Because you
need to do fresh runs on the blanks.
Yeah, sure.
The deal is 2 containers of counterfeit Winfield Blues.
How close to that can you get?
100%.
100%.
Because we can just send to Finnish factory. Their price is $150, right? $150 US. And we divide it into packs.
Yeah.
Divide it into 500 per master case.
Next year, when plain packaging comes in, the box will be even easier to counterfeit. But for now, the price works out to just $1.50 a packet, leaving a staggeringly high margin for the criminal seller back home. But the real trick is beating Australian customs.
Can we get it in Singapore in the free trade zone and get new paperwork to say, I don't know, that it's teddy bears in the container or something?
So the first question, if you don't have any connection in Singapore prison, I can contact with you.
You can.
I can buy for you.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Then we will ship directly to the prison Singapore, and then the Singapore prison company, many companies, they will do exchange the documents, the paperwork, and then they will do Singapore to Australia.
Okay. A $2 million shipment, counterfeit cigarettes, illegal chop-chop and customs fraud. It's all arranged within the hour. But to make it happen, we need not only to falsify shipping documents, but also to find a corrupt shipping agent willing to do it.
How can it be so easy just to fabricate documents for a shipment?
You will unstuff the container, the first container, and you pack into a new container. There's no link.
Back in Singapore, we're introduced to Daisy. She's the corrupt shipping agent Howard said was essential for smuggling containers into Australia.
Are you aware of triads or illegal gangs using these sorts of techniques to take illegal products into Australia?
It is possible that such shipments are linked to triads because usually it's the triads who deal in tobacco products and liquor.
To smuggle people, though, criminals must have free access to high-security ports. It sounds near impossible, but amazingly, with Daisy's help, we were able to do just that. And once inside Singapore's port, we were free to wander wherever we liked. This is the place illegal shipments are unpacked and repacked into different containers and their documents altered. Here we found a shipment of illegal tobacco waiting to go. At no stage were we questioned or hindered in any way. And if we wanted to shuffle illegal immigrants into a container, there certainly would have been no one to stop us.
There's no question tobacco smuggling does happen through ports like this on a truly enormous scale. But human trafficking is another matter altogether. Is it really believable that triad gangs can smuggle 100 people at a time into docks like that across thousands of kilometres of ocean into Australia without the authorities ever getting wise?
So it's difficult, but is it impossible?
No, nothing's impossible. I think if you're talking about a lot of money, you can do lots of things.
Where do they go in Australia? Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane?
Sydney.
Sydney.
Sydney is perhaps the last place authorities are looking for illegal immigrants.
The advantage to the people smugglers of bringing asylum seekers here to Sydney is as plain as day. No chance of drowning in a leaky boat, no chance of getting caught in Australia's offshore processing net. And once on the ground, according to Angel, buying their freedom is as simple as a straight cash bribe.
How do you get them out of the port in Australia?
At night, they release the people.
At night time?
Yes.
This is arguably the most disturbing allegation Angel makes, that our ports, our last line of defence, are rife with corruption.
How do you get them out at night? There are people at ports 24 hours a day, there's security, there's customs. How do you get them out at night?
We contact the Australian customs that we have a relationship with. So once they are contacted, they facilitate to release the people.
So it's possible. You could do that.
Yeah.
If you paid enough money to the right person.
I think so.
Customs admits to checking less than 5% of shipping containers that come into Australia. Much more than that would cripple trade. Instead, they rely heavily on intelligence to uncover illegal shipments. The problem is, we'll never know about the ones they miss.
I don't think any customs agency around the world thinks that it can protect against all smuggling.
Given the serious nature of the allegations being made here, last month we invited Customs to look at our tapes. Initially, they declined. Today, we heard from them again. Customs told us they take these allegations seriously and asked us to provide them with all the detailed evidence that we found, which we're happy to do. They also wanted to know the following, quote, "Can you please advise if you paid your sources for this story in any way, i.e. paid for the interview, paid for travel, paid for food, etc., end quote. The answer to that is no.